This is Derek O'Fodernwall with TheMedicineShell, and today I'm going to discuss blood sacrifice, or Aja in Igbo spirituality. Why our ancestors and Odinani followers till this day do blood sacrifices, and what, if anything, is the science or reasoning behind the tradition. Why blood sacrifice is not only one of the most visible features of African traditional religions, but how it works, and whether or not it actually works. And as I shed light into Ichu Aja from the Igbo perspective, I'll hopefully give clues as to why all religions and all cultures acknowledge and root themselves in the idea that sacrifice is a real and effective medium for communicating with forces beyond the scene, to ultimately reveal why our collective human ancestry made sacrifice so universal, and whether or not it's something that has any power today. The best way to support this channel is by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. All of my patrons have access to my research library, where I get my information from. It has hundreds of ebooks, articles, studies, and first-hand historical sources on Igbo spirituality, culture, and history. I even have a folder that goes into the spirituality, cosmology, and histories of neighboring cultures, as well as cosmologies in the diaspora, such as Hoodoo, Obeah, Santeria, Ifa, and more. We also have an Odinani group study, which is a live discussion on various topics. The last topic we did was the relationship between the Chi and Chuku. So we had a great conversation breaking that down and digging deep into the topic and sharing insights amongst each other. Patrons also have access to a 13-moon, 4-market day Igbo calendar that integrates with your Google Calendar and lets you know the meanings of the 13 moons and the different dates of observances in Odinani and Igbo. All of this is available for those who keep this channel going at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. So join today to support the channel. That being said, let's begin. There are no things in existence, only forces, and this law governs the world of the living and manifest, as well as the unmanifest and unseen. And at the core of thought in Odinani is the multi-generational effort to ensure that humanity sustains peace with these forces, and that these forces themselves maintain balance amongst each other. And therefore, you are not just a person, but a force, a movement, or an intention coursing through time and space, with a special path, nature, and direction, similar to a shooting star or the casting of a wave of water. But the universe is not wholly vacant, and all of the forces in nature are subject to the movements and positions of other forces. The universe is a perpetual boiling or orchestra of friction, crossroads, collisions, and exchanges. A comet may have a set path based on how it was cast into time and space and the direction it's facing, but its movement and ultimate destination will be affected by the gravitation of the things in and near its path, or the other bodies that are in its way. At times, forces are subject to other forces. In contemporary science, this is expressed in the principle that forces in motion stay in motion until acted on by equal and opposite forces. And this constant brewing of pushing and pulling, clearing and colliding, creates an ancestral worldview that sees the relationship between these forces, which comprise the universe, as a fight or a constant struggle. As is shown in the Ilu Aja, the universe is war. A great portion of Odinani and Igbo is dedicated to understanding these paths and movements, and ultimately the forces that may get in one's way, and how these forces interact with each other otherwise. Some of these forces are physical, like illness, politics, war, geography, natural occurrences and obstacles, while others are non-physical, such as Mmuo, energies, influences, memories, thoughts, feelings, relationships, intentions, and so forth. And in the ancestral worldview, all things exist in both spaces. Madu existing in the physical and either collaborating with or clashing with the forces of the physical world, and Mmuo collaborating with, syncing, or clashing with forces of the unseen and non-physical, which form a collective known as Mmuo. Madu and Mmuo therefore affect each other and the world around it, similar to instruments and rhythm, with an instrument creating a rhythm, the instrument in this metaphor representing Madu, and the rhythm, the unseen force which emits from the instrument, representing Mmuo, which then returns into the physical world to affect the physical by form of dance, or by setting the tune that the other instruments within a band will follow, but both being set in action by their chi, which is in this case the instrumentalist, or on a deeper level, the intention to create music, which manifests as a sequence, vibration, or force that appears to us as a chain of events. And in the ancestral worldview, an individual is a universe unto themselves. And as the universe is a collection of moving forces and vibrations, so too is the individual. One of the ways to understand the world of forces as a concept is to think of oneself. What is you? The contemporary scientific understanding is that every 7 years, every single cell in your body is brand new. And every single cell, piece of tissue, and so forth that is you right now will be dead and replaced with new ones in the next 7 years. But there's something singular about you, a force that recognizes that you are the same thing as you at 2 years old, the same thing as you at 9 years old, the same thing as you today, and the same thing as you in the next 7, 14, or 20 years. In fact, because everybody who watches this channel is going to live a very long life, let me even say the next 100 years. And when that arrives, you'll still recognize yourself as the same thing on that day as you are today, despite being an entirely different physical form. Now, regardless of what name you give it, that invisible, intangible thing that makes all versions of you move through space and time, seeing themselves as one single thing, is itself a force moving through space and time, like a comet or wave of water, making the individual a song comprising of many instruments, but ultimately forming one single rhythm. Now, this idea of life as music, or the singularity of an individual being a rhythm or a vibration, is what makes Ogene music a sacred or spiritually potent form of music, which in itself is medicine. So if you'd like to see a video on Ogene or spiritually potent music in Odinani, comment below. Now, as you are a force that is bigger than and more complex than the self, or at least the self that you're immediately aware of, and that force is moving through space and time. You share both space and time with these external forces, the way the many forces that comprise you share the same space, which is you, with each other. And therefore, to ultimately understand the purpose of blood sacrifice in Igbo spirituality, the big question then is, how do the forces that share and make up the universe interact with each other? And why is blood at the center of it? One of the things people have a hard time reconciling when they're studying Odinani and Igbo, or Igbo spirituality, is the hierarchy of the universe. Because in Odinani, the Abara, who are the spirit forces of nature, often translated in the modern day as the gods, are for some reason not superior to human beings. Some within Odinani interpret them as equals, others as subordinates to human beings, who are in service to humanity, but never is their role interpreted as superior unless by error. So to understand how the forces of the universe interact with each other and humanity, and how this relates to Aja or blood sacrifice, you must understand the universe as a universe of equals. In the beginning of the universe we occupy today, Chukwu aimed to put the universe back together from the great explosion. In this explosion, the universe, who is his wife, or feminine half known as Eke, shattered in an explosion that sent her parts and essence spreading in all directions, creating time and space, or Uwa, the universal plane. To bring her pieces back together, Chukwu employed the help of Udide, the cosmic spider. Udide, or Ududo Okanka, is the galactic spider force that perpetually weaves a cloth over the body of the deceased wife of Chukwu, who is the universe herself. In weaving this cloth, Udide expands the body of the galactic mother in her shape, which is the spiral. The cloth is known as Ogodo Ne Chukwu, the fabric of Ne Chukwu. The strings of this cloth themselves are another manifestation of Eke, who is known as Uwa, Nechuku, or Kamosu. These strings are known as Ete. Ete not only gives the universe shape by holding the universal body together, but also provides a system of streams, canals, pathways, and tubes for energies to move through. Ete on a universal level has both seen and unseen strings, some visible in the night sky through the arrangement of the stars, others unseen, but like the tubes of the universe which are physical, provide arteries that connect to different parts of creation. And on a person-to-person level, or the level of nature, there are strings that connect you to the things around you. And ultimately, they all lead to Obi Chukwu, the source of creation, or the resting place of the divine father element, known as Chukwu. It is from the unseen strings that you receive much of what comes from Chukwu, such as Uche, or a wisdom beyond wisdom, Ikenga, your kinetic, spirit force, or force of movement, which activates as the higher self when you are walking the path that your chi paved for you, and Ndu, or life. These celestial tubes, known as Ete, also provide an uninterrupted path from your chi to you, and from you to the other forces of the universe. Now, in my previous video, Amadioha explained, I went into explaining 4 elements out of the 7 elements that make up your Mmuo. Now, in the 7 layers of Mmuo, the 7th goes by the name of Aro. Now, what is different from Aro is that Aro rides up and down the Ete that connects you to your Chi and is not always permanent or fixed on an individual's spirit like the others. But when it arrives, it allows an individual to have a level of clairvoyance that then makes them a diviner. And it is what is awakened in once in a lifetime level Debias. So if you're interested in the 7 layers of Mmuo, where I break down all 7, comment below. As Ete provides you with paths between you and the forces of nature and you and the people around you, as well as holding together the forces that comprise you, the single rhythm that is you. Ete is one of many examples of how you are a universe and microcosm. As these forces make their way through you and around you, you too make your way towards your destiny on a path known as Akaraka. Akaraka not only describes one's destiny, but the whole of you as a force, or all of the forces connected to form the rhythm that is you. It comprises of what can be seen, such as the events of your life, and what cannot be seen, like the elements that make up the force that is you. These include Ndiche, your ancestors, your Onyowa, or reincarnating spirit, your Babando, or your star, that is you manifested in Eligwe, or space above the sky. And then finally, that path that I often speak about, that your Chi carves for you, that leads you to your destiny, which is also known as Akaraka, Ete, or Owa, which means canal or demarcation. And because all energies or all concepts appear in different levels or realms, your Akaraka also appears as the pathways on the palms of your hand, from where it gets its name, the etchings on one's hand. And this relationship between Ete, Ne Chuku, and your Chi, as well as the other forces of the universe, repeats itself on multiple levels. Obi-Chuku remanifests in miniature as the hearts, Ete as Owabara, or blood vessels, and the blood running through it, physical manifestation of life. The way a city is given life by the people in it, and its roads, highways, bridges, and overpasses, forming canals that send life from one part of the organism to the other. For most living things, life takes physical form as blood, and all ingredients necessary for life flow within the blood throughout the body. And in its flow is one of the constants that allows you to recognize yourself as a single unit in creation through time and space. Blood is therefore liquefied life. Now, before we go into the specifics of sacrifice in Igbo culture, it is important to understand a few things. The contemporary world sees blood as offensive, whereas our ancestors saw blood as an extension of the body, no less offensive than seeing a head, or hands, feet, or someone's face, as all parts of the body were accepted as rightfully placed, especially something as common as blood. Therefore, seeing blood, particularly the blood of an animal, was no stranger than seeing its hair or its teeth. What is also important to remember is that unlike the contemporary world, our ancestors and many of our contemporaries kill their own food. Now, I live in the US, and because we don't kill our own food, it's easy for us to forget that the meat we eat requires bloodshed, and bloodshed is a normal part of preparing a meal. Most of us are used to going to a store full of birds that have been dead for an average of 5 days, that for some reason have no smell, picking one up and cooking it from that point. So for many in the world today, especially in the country that I live in, the process of picking a live chicken and then killing it right before cooking and eating it is alien. And using its blood or dedicating its blood for one thing or another is even more alien for the average person. But if you go into the butchery of any country, you'll know that the process of eating meat involves extreme amounts of bloodshed. And that to fully understand Ichu Aja, there must be an understanding of the respect and the ancestors and even contemporaries of many people in different cultures throughout the world had for blood. That being said, let's continue. Living in a world of moving forces, all forces have a path based on where their chi casts them towards. And when all forces are on their path, there is perfect balance and equilibrium. But this has never happened. And from all accounts, it will never happen, as this is the nature of the universe. As Chukwu put his wife, Eke, back together, he created the Abara to help in the task. Chukwu then gave each Abara its own power, purpose, path, and reason for being. And with these gifts, they worked tirelessly to rebuild the Universal Mother and restore order to the universe. And as they worked, they served their purpose faithfully, each of them doing their parts in the rebuilding. But they were different from one another. And where there is difference, there is imbalance. And over time, they began to wonder which Abara was favored in the eyes of Chukwu. Was it Agun, the universal mind, which balanced all Abara on its head, making it the wisest of all? Was it Nemmiri, as life is water, water is life, the cosmos an ocean, and she herself the first to emerge from Chuku after the great explosion. Or perhaps it was Anyanwu Nabaraya, the sun at the center of the galaxy, and Chuku's representative in the realm of nature. Over time, they grew jealous of each other, and with jealousy came competition. And with competition came a battle for ultimate supremacy as the Abara began to clash and refuse to work with each other. Now, if the Abara, who are the fundamental elements of the universe, such as light, water, minerals, ether, sentience, and wind, fail to cooperate or work with one another, their conflict would threaten the universe itself, tearing creation apart forever. Seeing the pending doom on the horizon, Chuku devised a new system. Chuku gathered the Abara and split the universe into 4 places: Eke, Urie, Afo, and Nkwo, or light, water, mineral, and ether, or wind. And within these spaces, Chuku grouped the Abara, one feminine and one masculine, to balance each other, each in its own respective place. Then in the middle, Chuku created a market. And the law of this market would be the law of the universe, so that when each Abara needed something from the other or wanted something from the other, it would follow its own path, enter the center of the market, and exchange what it had in abundance for what it lacked and needed out of the hands of the other. This would continue until equilibrium and balance was established between buyer and seller, and at that point, the Abara would close shop and return to their respective cosmic houses. In this system, universal order was established as Chuku channeled the competitive and clashing nature of the universe into a market of energies, which is pointed out by the Ilu, Uwawahia, Madozucha, Allah, or the world is a market. When one is done shopping, they leave. This establishes 3 primary principles of universal order. The first is that things do not come from nowhere. All things in the plane of existence are an exchange. Matter, energy, and intention does not exist onto itself or bring itself into existence, but rather is taken from one place and exchanged to stand in another. The universe is therefore give and take, and even the word for creation, eke, does not imply creation, but rather rearranging, reconfiguring, or redistributing a fixed principle that was already there. Obi-Chuku, the source of creation, is also referred to as Akwodi, the nest of still darkness or equilibrium, because like a bird's nest, it was created from materials that were already on the forest floor. The second is that the universe is give and take. What is to be had has a price, and what is given has a reward. This is particularly important to remember to understand why sacrifice is done in many cases. And in fact, it brings me to the topic that came from a discussion I had very recently with somebody as far as why their ancestral prayers weren't working. You know, we took a look at what the person wanted or what the person was asking for and came to find that they were working, but they were also not acknowledging that the good comes with a bad. That if somebody is asking for wisdom, well, wisdom can come with things like loneliness. If you are asking for success, success comes with things like envy, so forth. I was thinking about making a very short and casual video about how the things we ask for are two-sided and why this could be one of the reasons your prayers or your manifestations aren't working, because you're not acknowledging both sides of the coin. And you're not doing the necessary things to minimize the negative of it. But we'll see if it's something you guys want to hear. The third principle is that the universe is a market of equals, meaning that all forces of the universe were given equal part in creation by Iwu Okike, the laws of the creator. But equality does not come in equality of power or equality of possession or even equality of position, but rather the fact that all forces are equally dependent on each other for survival and continuity, as survival is determined by the capacity to exchange and access other forces for all forces in the universe. So no matter the position of a force in nature, it still needs the others to be. Powerful need the weak. What is up needs what is down. Light gives darkness meaning, and meaning is given to darkness by light. And on different levels of existence, we have given this nature of relationship different names, be it the food chain, the circle of life, a market, an economy, an ecosystem, a community, or a universal order itself. Meaning that while the Albara are powerful, they still need human beings the way human beings need them. And while spirits have access to things that human beings do not, human beings have access to spirits do not. And spirit work is the interface or intercourse between both parties, where things are given on one end in order to receive on the other. and each party entering the market looking for what they lack and giving what they have in abundance. This universal configuration can be seen in the individual organism, such as a human being, where you are a composition of forces and functions, such as the heart, the brain, the skin, the liver, pancreas, and so forth. And all of these stations are in constant exchange with each other, in a relationship that's less about hierarchy and more so about the symbiotic flow and receiving what it needs from the parts of the body that possess it in abundance or exist to achieve that function. And with the law of the universe being the law of exchange, or the law of the market, this brings us to Ichu Aja. Ichu Aja is often translated as manifesting by way of bloodletting, but the word lends itself to a meaning beyond its known purpose. The verb Ichu can be translated to chase, Ichu Madu being the chasing of a person, but can also mean the act of giving chase to something or sending it away, while also meaning to look for or to pursue, from the root verb chu, to pursue. Aja itself means sand, but like most nouns in the Igbo language, it is a conjugation of a verb, with the root verb of aja being ja, to hide, with aja meaning sand in reference to it being a covering or something that by nature hides and cloaks. So on one level, the word means to sweep away sand or to chase away sand. On another level, it means pursuing what is hidden or unseen. And on another level, it means revealing or repelling what is hidden. Ichu Aja is a perfect example of the multidimensionality of Igbo language. And when you understand Igbo cosmology, you see why these words, with their layers of meaning and even changes in inflection when said, are all connected and in essence say the exact same thing. Ichu Aja then becomes, on a visual level, the sweeping away of sand, clearing of a path. In connection to this meaning, Ichu Aja is done for four primary reasons. The acknowledgement of forces being the first, the clearing of your path being the second, the paying of a debt to a force of nature or an unseen member of creation being the third, and the purchase of a service from an unseen force being the fourth. The first of these is acknowledgement. In ancestral thoughts, the family and friend circle does not end with the living, but also extends to the unliving, ancestors and those that are not seen, but are also members of the family or community. The Mmuo or unseen elements of a person, both living or dead, stays with the family as long as it is acknowledged. This includes ancestors, deceased friends, and loved ones, and spirits that the community or an individual has acknowledged as being present or even welcomed into their fold. To establish the presence of Mmuo, an individual must say its name. This name, like your name, is one of the many paths of manifestation an individual has, and where it is said, their Mmuo or the Mmuo of the person is present. And this is at the root of why, in many African cosmological systems, using the real and specific names of your ancestors is important when intending one's altar. Ichu Aja is done in acknowledgement of the spirit in an individual's life, and for those within Odinani, is a way of including them in meals. So when a chicken is killed before it is cooked, the portion which is fed to Mmuo, or the members of the family, friend group, that are in ala Mmuo, is blood. Blood is given to the unliving and unseen as a means of including them in a meal, while the remainder of the chicken, or whichever animal is being eaten that day, is eaten by the living members of the family. It is important to remember that blood is liquefied life in the ancestral worldview, and blood is chosen to be given to the unliving because you have an abundance of life and they have a lack of it. And if you remember earlier in this video, the order of the universe is things flowing from a place of abundance to a place of lack. Acknowledgement also extends to forces which provide for individuals as a means of saying thanks. Individuals will give to forces that provide for them, such as performing Ichu Aja for a river, which provides you with water to drink and sustains your family over generations, by killing the animal at the river, dedicating it to the river, and taking the rest home to cook for the family. You may give sacrifice to the earth in acknowledgement and thanks for sustaining and providing food for you, a place to be, as well as giving you life. Another aspect that is important to remember when interfacing with a specific Abara is to remember that Chineke placed them in specific houses, Eke, Urie, Afo, and Nkwo, and each of these houses is a market itself, as they are called market days. Now, if you understand the Igbo market system, you'll know that these are also the 4 days of the calendar, and that every community hosts a market that has one of these names. And on Eke Day, the Eke market is open while the rest are closed. And on Urie Day, the Urie market is open while the rest are closed, and so forth. And based on the day you were born, one of these days is your day as well. And so many within Odinani will use their specific day as a day of prayer, a day of manifestation, and so forth, because that is when their celestial market is open. If you're interfacing with a specific Abara, be it through sacrifice or manifestation, then you would do it on their day, because that is when their market is open. So Nemiri, for example, would be interfaced with on Orie Day, because that is her day. Anna on Afo, Nechuku on Eke, and so forth. Now I can do a video on the market days and go in depth on the concept, so if you're interested in that, comment below. But because of this, specific sacrifices are done on specific days. Specific rituals and manifestations are done on specific days, or are optimally done on specific days, based on the forces involved. Now all of my patrons get the 4 market days added to their Google Calendar. So you always know which day it is, which day is your day, and which day is optimal for certain manifestations, rituals, and ancestral work. So if you're interested, you can join at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. It also includes the 13 moons, which is also important. And I also help patrons find out which day is their day and which day is best to do certain things, as I'm always open to answering questions for them. So you can join at the link below, patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. Ichu Aja, when done in the name of acknowledgement, is not entirely selfless. As its name implies, Ichu Aja means to clear a path, akin to sweeping sand from a walkway, or removing roadblocks and debris from a road that leads you to an important destination. This acknowledgement also sweeps the road between you and whatever you're offering the blood to. Earlier I explained how the marketplace was created as the cornerstone of universal law, and the law of the universe is therefore exchange and trade. I also explained how the universe is a woman, Eke, and how the market, a manifestation of woman, is also feminine and controlled by women in Igbo culture. What I didn't mention was that the roads are also considered feminine, or the footpaths that lead from a home to a market, which traditionally were the roads of a community. These footpaths are manifestations of the principle I spoke about earlier, Ete, the strings or canals which connect all things. The way our blood vessels do the same within the body. These roads provide a route from one force to another, and sweeping it clean is a means of keeping that road open so that the relationship and regular back and forth trade is possible. So Ichu Aja is likened to sweeping one's footpath clear so that the blessings from the other side can continue to flow, and the ete, or connection between you and the force you are performing Ichu Aja towards, is clear and open. In this context, it is important to remember or to acknowledge that in Igbo culture, there are no sacrifices given to Chukwu, as Chukwu does not exist on the universal level, or the universal plane known as Eke. The laws of Obi Chukwu, the source plane, function entirely differently from the laws of the living world. And the laws of Obi Chukwu do not have a transactionality to them. Now, if you're interested in the video on Obi Chukwu specifically, and there's a lot to be said on the topic, comment below. Ichu Aja's acknowledgement is a means of sweeping or cleansing the roads between you and the market by which you trade with the forces of nature. It sustains Ijama, or a good path, with the ancestors, and maintains a clear Owaba, or blood vessel, between you and that which gives you life, such as the earth, the waters, the sky, the sun, your ancestors, and any other natural spirit or force that you acknowledge as being important for a given task or for your general existence. Ichu Aja's acknowledgement is a token towards the maintenance of a good relationship between two ends of a given path. It is similar to tipping a barber well to encourage a good haircut and good customer care, or occasionally getting your significant other a gift, or inviting a neighbor over for holiday dinner, as all of these actions clear and improve the path and connection between you and the other person. The second use of Ichu Aja relates to the first, and that is the clearing of your path of danger or obstacles. In this sense, Aja is used as a power wash to blast away dangerous intent that has been placed on your road. While Chukwu gave all things their space, as a byproduct of free will, we often lose our way or step out of our space, or deliberately enter the path and space of others. Like the Abara, people have a natural divinity given to them by their chi, natural power and a natural place in the world and world order that is wholly theirs, but they still envy that of others, seek to establish supremacy over each other, and on occasion, wage attacks into the spaces of others, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Performing Aja therefore means the clearing of the way of proverbial traps and misalignment. Like the roads of a community, there are intersections where your path meets the path of another. There are intersections between you and the people in your life, where you share a moment in space and time together. There are mergers in roads where paths become one for a set amount of time before separating again. And there are common destinations where multiple paths reach a single point, like a community market. Like Madu, Mmuo also has its paths, and at times you will meet spirits at this intersection. And for this reason, Aja is often performed to assure peaceful bypassing at a cosmic intersection, or to avoid danger once the intersection has been made. At times, there can be breaches in a relationship between an individual and a given spirit, a specific abara, or even a specific person. And for this reason, an Ezenwai, or a Dibia, who identifies a conflict at an intersection between you and a force, will prescribe that you perform Ichu Aja specifically at a crossroad to give physical form to an abstract concept, a practice that is common in Odinani. It is often said that Ekwensu, the enforcer Abara, is also the quote-unquote god of the crossroads. And there's some truth to that. When Chukwu placed all of the Abara in their respective cosmic houses, Eke, Orie, Afo, and Nkwo, and built a market at the center for them to enter and trade with each other, Chukwu appointed Ekwensu to enforce this new universal law. Ekwensu is said to be the Abara that watches when rituals, prayer, and Ichu Aja is done, to approve whether it's done properly before the message is sent into the cosmos, or before the person can then proceed on the path. For this reason, when crossroads are met, Ekwensu enforces the orderly passing of all parties. In a modern city road, this force is represented by things such as the traffic light, traffic sign, intersection police who play that role on a city level, the role that Ekwensu plays on a cosmic level, in regulating the proper flow of universal traffic. This is highlighted by the etymology of the name Ekwensu. Ekwe meaning what is allowed, from the root verb kwe, permit, and nsu meaning commencement, from the root word su, which doesn't really have an English translation, but more or less means the effect of something taking effect. Like if a plane starts to fly because a plane is designed to fly, then that is an example. Or for example, when you're in a party and the party really starts jumping off, somebody will say, hey, osule, which means it has begun. Specifically, the party is officially partying, which again is hard to say in English. I have a video called Ekwensu Explained where I break down this very, very misunderstood Abara. So if you're interested, the link is below. The third use of Aja is in the paying of a cosmic debt, as footpaths are manifestations of Ete, or the cosmic strings connecting the universe. Footpaths and Ete both lead to the station of exchange, which in a community is symbolized by the markets. As Ete carries energy, the footpaths carry the people, who themselves are the energy of a community, and carriers of the currency, or means of exchange of the market. Currency, in all senses, meaning what is necessary for one person or one party to animate action or effect from another, what something is willing to receive in order to do your will. And therefore, a community acknowledges whatever animates movement from another party as currency. When an individual enters a market, they will give the currency of that market in order to get what the receiver is offering, or get the receiver to do something in exchange. And both currency and blood are solid and liquid manifestations of energy and will. To understand Aja being used to pay cosmic debt, it is important to remember that currency or money is a unit of energy that is only as powerful as it is able to create effect. It is also important to remember that not all receivers take the same currency. Some things will need to be bought in Naira. Others need to be bought in pounds. Others need to be bought in dollars, depending on the location you are buying the item from. And this law applies on a universal level. For this reason, not all spirits and not all Abara take blood. Some require water. Others may take honey. There are instances where they will take tree pulp. Some will take nzu, which itself is a solid form or solid representation of the same force that is water. But often when there's a cosmic debt to be paid, or a certain Abara is approached in order to procure a service, those who are the keepers of the Abara, or a ritual expert such as a Dibia or an Ezenwai, will be the person to tell you what the spirit or Abara is willing to receive. It is also important to note that an individual, in the traditional sense, does not go to an Abara for no reason, or just to, hang out there or worship or whatever you call it. Specific problems call for the services of specific Abara, the way car problems call for a visit to the mechanic, and plumbing problems call for a call to the plumber. But Abara exists primarily as a problem-solving center, as far as human use goes. So they are more comparable to a courthouse, where you go to if you have a case, or a university, where you go to if you want to learn, or anything you go to that has a specific function. rather than a temple or a mosque or a church where there is a religious obligatory duty to go or expectation to go regularly to affirm one's faith. Ichu Aja is therefore performed to procure a service from an Abara. It is also used in paying a cosmic debt owed to a spirit or Abara. Now, I want to be very clear about this because it's something that I'm seeing a lot of modern day Debias and so forth do that I find kind of annoying. Um, you do not have a debt or you have not committed an offense against any force that you yourself are not aware of. And there has never been a time in our tradition where you have to appease things that you know damn well that you did not offend, you did nothing to, right? So for example, I had a cousin who recently had a car accident with Eke Njaba, or a python from the Njaba River. Now, if you've watched my video, Sacred Animals Explained, part 1 and 2, which I've linked below, you'll understand that Eke Njaba, or the python, is connected to the spirits of Nemiri, or whatever the river is in the community, as well as Anna. And in many Igbo communities, it is a taboo to kill them. Now, he had a car accident and he killed Eke Njaba, but because he's a Christian, he refused to do the proper sacraments or pay the cosmic debt for the crime he had committed. And I kid you not, for the past few weeks, he's been having what looks like diabetes or extreme inflammation from what looks like diabetes, but he's not a diabetic and he has no history of it. There's no history of it in his family and so forth, just a lot of swelling. And so people are telling him to, even if he goes to the hospital, he still needs to appease for the offense that he committed. But, that's a back and forth right now. So I don't know what he's going to end up doing and so forth. Now, this is an example of when an appeasement is necessary because it seems the word appeasement is very popular in Nigeria. But I think it gets used out of context, right? If you're being told that you have to appease this and appease that, and you know that you did nothing wrong or you did nothing to offend said spirits, then you're probably being misled. Think of the Abara and think of Mmuo or spirits as people or members of a community. So if I came to you and said you need to go appease your neighbor and you haven't done anything wrong to them, then you don't have to regard what I'm saying. But if you broke your neighbor's car windows one day and the police tell you that you need to pay a fine or pay restitution to your neighbor, it's the exact same thing. So again, I don't know why the online Debia community is really into this word appeasement. But if you're being told you have to appease something that you know very well you did not offend, you're probably being misled. Now, if you are being told to appease something and the advice resonates with you and it feels like truth, then, go ahead and do it. But one major reason I make these videos is so that when people are interfacing with our traditions, they have something to reference or counterbalance what they're hearing. But it's ultimately up to you whether you want to listen to me or you want to just be appeasing things up and down. Anyways, back to the video. Ichu Aja is used to reestablish peace where a peace has been breached, similar to the Oji, which is used in establishing peace when a cord has been broken between two communities or two people, or even two families. And I'll explain the connection between Oji and Aja shortly. In repaying debts, Aja is also used in substitution. In Igbo cosmology, the universe is reciprocal, and all things in the universe have a give and take nature to them, an action and reaction and cause and effect, which ultimately inclines all things towards balance. In the realm of justice, this principle is known as Ofonogu. The Ofo is justice, rights, and authority given to a person, often in physical form, as the Ofo staff of authority, and is held by anybody who is a custodian of something else, be it a household, a family, a title, a social responsibility, a business, or a gift, such as healing, crafting, singing, and in my own case, teaching. The Ofo is the responsibility and power that come into the universe together, and in modern times has been encapsulated by the Spider-Man motto, with great power comes great responsibility. And with that power and authority, as well as a vow to uphold the principles of the Ofo that you hold, comes its balancing principle, which is Ogu. Ogu is the rights that come with being in righteous standing of a principle connected to your Ofo. In the activation or acquisition of an Ofo, there is an oath taken to uphold the principles of that Ofo, which are usually a list of virtues and laws you will live by so long as you're the holder of the Ofo. The balancing principle of the Ofo is Ogun. When an individual is in righteous standing with the Ofo and has followed the principles of their Ofo, they receive what is known as Ogunoma, or good Ogun, which affords them the protection and continued flow of the power from their chi to their body, which allows them to execute the given task that the Ofo stands for. But Ogun is also the punishment, or reciprocal balancing nature, that strikes a person when they violate the principles of their Ofo. The Ofo is God's trust, which is given to you when Chukwu hands you a part of creation to look after, and Ogun is God's retribution, or the loss of that trust, once you have fallen short of expectations and violate the trust by breaking the virtues of the Ofo. And in general, it is what balances out changes within the universe, or a change in the state of nature. So when an individual violates an Ofo, be it an accord between two people, or an accord between themselves and their community, such as a crime, or violates an accord between themselves and a spirit, or themselves and the universe, some practitioners believe that the Ogun of their violation, which is punishment, or the exactment of a debt owed to justice, can be transferred onto an animal as a part of the retribution process. This animal is then killed, so that the death or punishment that awaits the person that enacted the violation is transferred into the animal or exacted by the animal, and thus rebalances the scale of justice, known as Ofon Ogun. Now, one of my patrons gave a brilliant example of this. So we have this Odinani group chat in the Patreon. If you're interested, join at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. And where we just discuss these ideas. We pick a different topic once every 2 weeks, and we kind of have a round table where we're all discussing and things like that. And so he had brought up the idea, or that fact, that he sees sacrifice similar to a crash test dummy, right? So if you build a vehicle and you want to know if a human being can survive impact or what impact would do to a human being, the cost of that knowledge is actual damage to a human body, right? So you'd have to put a human being in there, run the experiments, crash, and then the human being will get damaged, and you'll see what kind of damage this type of situation has in store for a person. So in this situation, you are asking the universe for wisdom. Now, earlier I had said that a lot of times when we do manifestations and prayers and so forth, we ask for something and we receive it. But when the negative end of what we receive starts activating, or when we receive both of those things, we wish away that negative, not knowing that the positive will go with it. Or we fall under the impression that our prayer or manifestation didn't work. So in this case, if I want the wisdom of what an accident would do to a human body, the cost is actually damaging a human body in an accident. But in this case, the crash test dummy that is often used in car crash tests becomes the sacrifice for that wisdom, so that we receive the wisdom, and the negative end of the Ogun of what we receive is transferred onto that dummy. We get the wisdom without having to hurt a person. And I thought that was a pretty brilliant breakdown of how the negative ends of what we ask for can be transferred onto an animal, or transferred onto whatever we use to perform Ichu Aja. But yeah, if you like this channel, man, that group chat, that group chat's on a different level. So, like I said, it's become my favorite part of the month. So yeah, if you're interested in having conversations like this and so forth, I highly, highly, highly welcome you guys to join at patreon.com/TheMedicineShell. Anyways, back to the video. Now, this is an example of using Ichu Aja to pay a cosmic debt by way of substitution. Oftentimes, when you ask for things from a force of nature, the negative that comes from it, or that comes with it, is transferred onto an animal, which then carries the negative Ogun, or the unwanted Ogun of that which you ask to receive. While the accepted currency for the Abara differ, as currencies differ for people, one thing that is universally accepted by all is Aji, as blood is life, and life is the currency of the natural world. The Aji is also a manifestation of life, a manifestation of the human heart, and a manifestation of Obi Chukwu, the source from which we all come. This means that the heart, blood, life, and Aji are all a single force moving through nature, but representing itself in multiple forms, on multiple dimensions, which is seen in the Ilu, Onye wetara Aji, wetarando, or the person who brings Aji has brought life. Iwa Aji, the breaking ceremony of the Aji, which is performed before any gathering, be it a gathering with an individual with their ancestors at an altar, or when you have guests in your house, or at the beginning of a meeting. Ichu Aja is performed at the beginning of all things for Igbo people. Like Ichu Aja, it is a means of sweeping or cleaning the spiritual link between all of the people in the room, or honoring the thing that unites all of the people in the room, both living and non-living, and a means of inviting the spirits of togetherness and mutual cooperation or peace. Sharing Aji therefore holds the same space as sharing a meal with an unseen force, as most will offer Aji to their ancestors on a regular, and sacrifice in the Igbo tradition is not received if Aji is not broken at first, or before the sacrifice is done. Now the Aji is extremely powerful. It is used in divination, it is used for gatherings, and it is also very medicinally potent and good for maintaining health. So if you're interested in a video on the Aji, where I break down how to do the Aji breaking ceremony, its medicinal purposes, and its meaning on a spiritual realm, comment below. The fourth reason for sacrifice is the activation of an unseen force, as an individual is a composite of many forces. The forces of the universe and spirits are also composites, and these composites have a formula which repeats itself throughout creation and is universally the same. And this formula always begins with an intention, or a chi, which begins the process of spectruming, or bringing itself into reality. That gives it life. If you're interested in learning more about how a chi brings itself into reality, or into creation, which is the formula Chineke, I go into it in my Nechukwu Explained video, so the link is below. But once an intention is made, it becomes a chi, and this process for bringing that chi to life is identical to the process of bringing a person to life that your chi does, meaning like people, places, and things. The intention will also have a composite of forces, or be a composite of forces. And one of the forces that goes into bringing an intention to life is life itself. But because life, like all things on the Uwa plane, must come from somewhere else, or operates on a give and take basis, sacrifice is used to infuse life into an intention. Ichu Aja is therefore used as the life-infusing process for manifesting intentions. When an individual has an intention they wish to bring to life, the performance of Ichu Aja is one of the many methods for infusing life into that process by taking the life from the animal. And it is often used as a final piece in the activation phase of an intention. The intention can be the creation of a new business, the manifestation of good fortune, the manifestation of a safe journey, or the transformation of an individual from one type of person to another, which is the case with title taking or initiation. An obunsi is an object that serves as a vessel of an intention, and one of the pieces of the formula for bringing an intention to life is giving it physical form. An obunsi, therefore, is an object an individual manifests upon, and if the person chooses, Ichu Aja is used to infuse life into the intention of that vessel. The intention behind an obunsi will be entirely the choice of the individual who wishes to activate it, and on a case-by-case basis, it'll differ as far as how it is done. But no matter the method, there will always be the process of infusing life into the vessel or object, though how life is infused will differ. And once activated, its purpose, or its chi, will determine its Mmuo, or spirit, and the interaction with that spirit and your own will infuse an individual with its nature, or awaken its nature within you, or in a given situation. An obunsi dedicated to success will infuse you with the spirit of success. An obunsi infused with protection will protect you in a given situation, as the obunsi becomes a beacon, projector, or a magnet for the energy it was brought into the world to channel. A very simple way to do an obunsi is to take an item, and let's say you want to pass the bar exam. You will say onto it, I will pass the bar exam, I will pass the bar exam, I will pass the bar exam. And then give that thing the currency of life. You can use Aji, you can use water, and if it is legal and appropriate in the place you live, you can use Ichu Aja to infuse life into the obunsi. This gives the obunsi a more program towards helping you bring that intention to fruition. Now, what I'm describing right now goes into the space of nsi, or transmutation, the application of universal principles to effect change in reality. Now, the concept of nsi is identical to the process of forming today's technologies, medicines, advertising, works of art, and so forth. So if you're interested in a video on nsi, comment below. The final reason for performing Ichu Aja is in the fulfillment of a vow, which is the positive end of the previous reason I gave of paying a cosmic debt. When you ask a spirit or a force to move with you as you aim to achieve a limited task, or embark on something that may be risky or require a high level of ability to do, You can make a promise to the forces that you are inviting to walk with you. And the process by doing this is simple. When you interface with the force, be it your ancestors or your Ikenga, you first begin by giving the force a small sacrifice. And like a regular meeting, telling the force what you intend to do and the result you wish to have, but saying it with confidence, an affirmation more so than asking. Then promising a larger offering if the aim is achieved. For example, a person may go to their Ikenga and say, I'm being deployed in Afghanistan next week, and I will make it back alive. If you are with me, I will reward you with a great sacrifice. Then, if the individual makes it back alive, they perform Ichu Aja with a greater offering, perhaps a ram, to the Ikenga. Now, in these cases, the first sacrifice is typically smaller, and the final one significantly larger and more difficult to attain than the first. The first being to initiate the relationship and cooperation. The second being a reward for a job well done. And what is considered great and small is based on the individual themselves. A poor person may initiate with kola, because that is easy to attain, but then reward with a chicken, because that is more difficult for them. A rich person may initiate with a chicken, but then reward with a cow. And this is ultimately dependent on the individual themselves and what they know is difficult and easy for them to get a hold of, so long as they are measuring greatness by difficulty to attain. Recently, I had a dream where an is and y that I know came to me and told me that something was happening to my channel, or that somebody was trying to do something to my channel. But in the dream, she was reading what sounded like a formal YouTube policy, and it didn't sound like her own words. So once she showed up in the dream, it was almost like she realized that I could see her, and then she stopped reading it and started all over again, as if she had been reading it prior under the impression that I was listening, but I wasn't until the moment I guess we connected. And like I said, she was reading it as if it wasn't her own words, like just kind of regurgitating what sounded like corporate jargon about getting videos removed and things like that. So I woke up and I went to my altar, and I specifically called upon my warrior ancestor, Amenaha, and asked for a sign as to what's going on, if anything is going on, because I don't necessarily believe in following dreams blindly. And then, of course, I made the promise of a reward if we figure out the issue that we're going to celebrate together. So I get on my laptop, and then I figure out that that morning, the exact same morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. I went to my altar at about, let's say, 4:05, 4:10. And then within the next 2-3 minutes, I get on my laptop and I figured out that somebody in Vietnam had put a copyright strike on my video because I had a clip of a tree that you guys will unfortunately not be seeing anymore. And I actually started laughing when I saw it. And so I drafted them a letter in Vietnamese and I asked them to remove the strike. And, I looked them up as well. I guess it was this huge media conglomeration in Vietnam. So it wasn't just like some random guy. It was like a major company. Anyways, yeah. By, let's call it 9, maybe 10 that morning, they removed the strike, which was great. So me and Amenaha that evening, we got drunk. I offered him champagne. We had drinks and I chilled out in the altar and celebrated or enjoyed my drink in the presence of my altar or my ancestors. Though I haven't thanked the is and why, because she's somebody I respect a lot, and I don't want to freak her out by telling her I'm having dreams about her. Who knows how people perceive these things, But given her job, I'm sure she's used to it. So I'll reach out when I'm done with this video. With all the reasons for performing Aja put in perspective, the full picture ultimately points back to a relationship between the forces of the universe and humanity being one that is lateral or on equal footing, interdependent and market-based. In the ancestral worldview, the world is a world of forces rather than things, and these forces have their paths and places within the general webwork of existence. When the forces meet, like when people meet, nothing comes from nothing. And when one asks for something, be it a service or a favor, that individual must be willing to offer or sacrifice something in order to receive what they do not have. The Igbo worldview is fairly unique in seeing the relationship between the forces of the universe as equal and democratic in their relationship with human beings. These forces take persuasion and have rules of engagement. We maintain relationships with them the way we maintain relationships with the people around us. But general equality means that no party, be it an abara or a person, should expect benevolence or favor from the other, as we do not expect benevolence from traders when we enter the market. Rather, we understand that exchange and trade is ultimately the peaceful alternative or peaceful solution to the universe's core nature, which is that of conflict, collision, and war. This principle is highlighted in the ilu, Orere bueze, Ozuazun bueze. Selling is king, buying is king. And that's it. Before I sign off, I want to give a big thanks to all of the patrons that make this channel possible. If you haven't joined already, go ahead and go to patreon.com/TheMedicineShell to support this channel. And big thanks to those who are doing it. Adaku Utah, Adelakin Abombi Oka, Akachi Lamb, Amechi Ekufu, Amaka Adog, Amanda Johnson, Andrew Anyanwu, Anthony, Aya Anelli, Bissy Life, Celeste Richmond, Sessa Salam, Shantae Thompson, Chara Williams, Chelsea E, Chief, Chinyere Njokwiri, Chika Okorafo, Chike, Chimoge Ibe. By the way, that's the guy that did the analogy on the that did the analogy about the crash test dummy, but I think he actually used like animal experimentation as an example as well. Like when you experiment on animals for scientific testing and things like that. Chinedu Akunne, Chino M, Chris Abani, Chukudubem A, Chukuma Bartholomew, Cozy, Crystal, Demisha Smith, Ememe, Nelson Okobi, Netter Arts, Ngozi Onoha, Nia, Nick Crenshaw, Nina Nwafia, Nnamdi Ezuku, Nwaka, the Igbo Cyber Shrine, Ofora, Okechukwu, Ebizie, Oloma Okpara, Olisaemeka Okapo, Rachel Nwokoro, Ross Jones, Sack Alexander, Sarah Nwafo, Sharika Regina, Stan, Stephen Chin, the Homegirl Healer, Uche Abueze, Uchenna Campos, Urenna Kara, and Whitney Brianna Thomas. Thank you.